Hello, everybody. It's Cindy Ingram again, July 25th, 2023. And today we are continuing our tour around the world, exploring contemporary artists from all over the world. And today we have a woman artist from Iraq. And she lived in Iraq until she was 11. Then she was a refugee to Sweden, escaped Saddam Hussein's Iraq using fake passports. They lived in Sweden for, I think, until she was a little bit more grown. Then she went to college in Florence and then ended up in the US in Phoenix, and then now lives in Los Angeles. So she has a vast amount of experience moving from culture to culture, and that is deeply influencing her work, moving from Iraq into the US and Europe. So let's look at her work. And as a reminder, while I share my screen, you can sign up to get these emails at artclasscurator.com/AATW. And there's also a giveaway there. You've got 2 more days left to enter. And I will choose winners on Friday and announce the winners on Monday. Okay, so here's our artist. Her name is Hayv Kahraman, and she creates these paintings of, well, one series of her work are these paintings of women contortionists. So if you take a look at this, I'm going to show you a few of them. And what I want you to do is really take a note for yourself what you think is happening in these artworks. Look at the positions, look at the way the figures are depicted, look at what their gaze, what they're looking at, their expressions on their faces. What do you think that this artist is trying to say with her paintings of these contortionists? So here's one. This one's called the Contortionist One, 2021 or 2019. Then we have Not Quite Human 2, also 2019. So it's almost that same figure from this one, right in the middle. You notice that they're all about the same features, the same kind of skin color, the same hair, very similar expressions, usually in these sort of patterned leotard swimsuit looking things. We can see here's some more of them in varying different postures. Again, we have, oh, that's the same one that we already looked at. And then there's this one, which I have seen in person, and it's very large. And I don't know if it was this exact one, but it was one very similar to this one at the work or the exhibit at the Modern Art Museum of Fort Worth, which was Women Painting Women, I think was the name of the exhibit. It was a really good exhibit a few years ago. This one gave me quite a sense of like dis-ease. Like I felt really kind of uneasy looking at this artwork. Those postures in particular were pretty I don't know, it made me a little bit uncomfortable, to be honest. Okay, so we're gonna flip back over this one. If you do show this one to you, if you do show this artist's work to your students, just know there is nudity. There are some where, of varying stages of nudity. There are some, more graphic poses. So just watch out for that. Don't go sending them to the internet to research, Hayv Kahraman's work. Pick out whatever you want to show them. But this is really striking to me because of it is so layered with meaning. I read a few interviews with the artist. I watched a couple videos that she did, and from an exhibit, a solo exhibit that she had, and it really is incorporating a lot of things. So she's commenting on gender. She talks about the what women have to do to especially in her culture in Iraq, like the women are sort of invisible, or they're not allowed in certain rooms, and they're sort of like off to the side while the men meet. She talks about how when she moved to Sweden, it was very much like she was the only, like the darkest person there, and how she stood out, and how she had to, or she felt so invisible that like she stood out while at the same time being incredibly invisible. So she's trying to incorporate that here into this artwork. She talked about how when she moved to Florence, that she studied, while in Florence, I think she spent 4 years there studying graphic design, that she went to all the galleries and looked at all the Renaissance art and was really immersed in sort of that Eurocentric ideal of like the Renaissance beauty. And that this desire that those are the standards of what beauty is to be white and to be thin and to be, like beautiful like these women. And so this figure that she incorporates in a lot of her work, in the article that I read, one of the articles that I read, she just called her she. I got so distracted. You'll have to excuse me. Today I am a little bit off kilter. Like every single person in my family has cried at least once today. It's been a day. It's been like, oh, and I'm making a video about art, but that's what we're here. That's fine. Okay. I wanted to pick some sort of cathartic one that I could just cry with you, but I didn't. I found this one. I liked this one, so we went with it. I don't know where I was going with that, but hopefully you see like this sort of standard of whiteness, and that she found herself too aspiring to that standard of whiteness while she was there. And then she talked about in the article the fact that the women, they're like, oh, and she also talked about how she used to take ballet, and then she also like can pop her, I don't know if it was her shoulder or elbow or it was both, like out of socket, and how like she was kind of like it was like a performance for other people, and they were always so like amazed by it, but like at the same time it was like very performative and very much like exotic, and it was kind of in a way hiding who she truly was. And I mean, there's so much here. And then what I really thought about is, personally, now of course I don't have the context of being an immigrant or refugee, and the race issues, but I really can relate to trying to conform and trying to fit yourself into a space that you don't necessarily feel like you fit. And it's something I write about a lot in my book, about how like for the first, I don't know what year we can say I stopped doing it, because we can probably make an argument that I still am kind of doing it in many ways, but that I was hiding a lot of who I was because of shame, or because it's not acceptable to be like, especially like with my neurodiversity, like I was trying to be put together, and I was trying to be organized, and I was trying to be perfect in any way that I could be. And so it kind of dulled down a lot of my natural ways of being. And I loved this quote in this interview, the one that I personally related to the most, and it's in my book talking about this a lot too, she says, so the interviewer asked her about the fact that they don't look like they're in pain, even though they're in these like really dramatically contorted positions. And she says, I'll just read her whole line here. She says, "You're right. There's a sense of numbness there. The numbness comes from the deception of yourself. This is kind of erasing or training yourself not to feel. I feel like once you train yourself to become someone else, you lose who you are, and who you think you are, at least. A coping mechanism is this kind of glazing over things. If you are able to allow yourself to feel pain, it is so extreme and traumatic that you might not be able to survive that pain. My therapist says you need to break in order to heal, and in order to break, you need to feel pain." So I really related to that, and also am wondering if that is why the paintings do make me feel kind of uneasy, that they do, it's like I'm being confronted with something that I don't want to think about, or I don't want to feel, and don't want to question about myself or the world or whatever it is. So those are my thoughts about about these artworks, coming from a place of a little bit of rawness today. I think, I would invite you to consider, in response to these paintings, where you feel you might be contorting yourself into places where you don't fit, and what would happen if you stopped doing that. And then also I would read this interview, honestly, if I were you. I'm going to put a link to it in the video. Oh, that's not it. It's from Hyperallergic, and the images aren't working, so that sucks. But I'll put the links to the images too. But it's a really, really powerful little interview. It's not very long, and it shows a lot of the depth of this work, and where these women came from, and the influence. And then, you could lead, if you're a teacher, you can lead discussions about this and all of the different things that it represents. There is an element of eroticism she talks about in the work, and humiliation and submission, and that's some stuff that you can kind of not discuss in your classroom if you choose the images that are not quite as confronting as some of them can be. And then you could do a drawing, you could do contour drawing and things like that as well. But I would even ask the students to consider where they are contorting themselves to fit in. And then, oh, you know what? I think this is where I was going earlier, but it's that the message of being invisible, and how when we other another person, whether it's by how they look, whether it's about a disability, we make them invisible. And so that is kind of something to ponder, to consider, to discuss in relationship to this work of art. Yeah, okay, so hopefully that was coherent enough for today. And thank you so much for joining me today to look at the work of Hayv Kahraman. I wrote it down as Kahraman, but it's Kahraman, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so thank you. Again, you can sign up for the emails at artclasscurator.com/AATW. Enter the giveaway, and I'll be back tomorrow with another work of art. And hopefully tomorrow, everybody in my house including me, will be a little bit more even and calm, and not crying about all the things. All right, nothing bad is happening. It's just one of those days. Okay, goodbye.